Welcome everyone. This is episode 14 of the Transmaxxing podcast, and today's topic is factors to consider before transitioning. Obviously, one very big factor to consider is how you will look after taking HRT, and this very much depends on your physical characteristics before, your age, and your bone structure especially. So I think we should turn this over to Jungle Bunny and ask about her perspective regarding the most important factors.
For me personally, I think the most important factor would be your appearance, your starting point. So ideally you probably wouldn't want to transition if you're extremely tall or had a very extremely brolic figure, a very masculine figure. Because it might be harder to lose the muscle mass as far as making passing easier. Also, your community definitely depends, would affect that too. Because obviously, if you live in a more transphobic environment, that wouldn't be the most ideal thing. Because you'll face a lot of resistance from your community. I personally experienced that, and it makes transitioning so much harder, and makes going back in the closet or boy moding so much easier, and that's not ideal. So, ideally, you want to be in an environment that supports trans rights or trans people as a whole. Also, financial wise, if you're living with your parents and they probably wouldn't support you transitioning, ideally you would have to live on your own to do that, unless you want to risk losing housing essentially. So housing, community, and your physical traits were the most important in my opinion, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's especially important if you live in some transphobic area that you are more careful when it comes to especially social transition. But even if you try to boy mode, if you live for example with transphobic parents, they might find out eventually and you might get into trouble anyway. So it's a lot harder to transition in less supportive environments. And some people might even have to move to some other state in order to have a decent transition, which is not really that ideal to have to do just to live a decent life.
Yeah, it's super inconvenient, having to basically uproot your entire life just to transition. And maybe there could be other options instead. Considering you might live in such a transphobic environment that the nearest non-transphobic place might be miles and miles and miles away, and that's obviously not ideal.
And if you visit some transphobic area, it's obviously a lot more important that you actually pass as a female. Because if you don't, you can get into lots of trouble.
And passing when you're just starting out is usually very difficult. So it's just gonna be really hard jump start in general, and it's probably make you discouraged and make you feel like it's something that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, and the issue is also that a big part of transitioning is the social transition aspect. And especially if you want to learn how to socialize as a female and all the social stuff, you need to girl mode for that kinda. But if you then don't pass and you cannot girl mode, and because you don't girl, you don't learn the social aspect of it, even if you later get the physical characteristics in order, you still might not be able to pass as a female socially anyway because how you behave.
Yeah, definitely. Behavior is a huge thing. If you really can't have social interaction, your behavior is gonna be extremely masculine. Doesn't matter how feminine you look. If you've been stuck in your house all day, it's gonna be very hard to unlearn that basically. Because women have a distinct way how they behave in different communities, so you can't really learn that just from looking online. Really, you have to actually engage. What Ben said.
And this is why I kind of recommend that you try to girl mode fairly early on. At least if you live in a more supportive area, and if you live in a transphobic area, you should probably just move. Because it's going to be really tough to try to live as a female there. Because like even if, for example, you pass, then when it comes to dating, it's kind of hard to hide at that point.
Yeah, in a lot of these other areas that are like more liberal, like a lot of the men are more willing to date trans women in general too, or like support trans women financially, versus like in like these more conservative areas or like less trans positive areas, like they might like see you as a woman or whatever, but the minute they know you're trans, they might be disgusted by you or get like really aggressive because the whole not because like there's anything wrong with you, just because of the way the culture teaches them to like see trans people, and it might be like a really negative experience.
When it comes to height, according to statistics, around 6 feet or 183 centimeters is about the maximum you can get away with without facing like issues in terms of passing. And you can lose a small amount of height on HRT, maybe like 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters, but that's about it. And it's not guaranteed either.
But
Uh,
yeah, also like the average female height is like really like varied. Like the average female height is like I think 5'4" or 5'3", and like most women aren't that short. So as long as you're not like over 6'2" or 6'3", like I don't think your height will really affect your possibilities that much, honestly, because there's women of all different heights.
yeah, it's fairly rare for women to be over 6 feet. But the thing is, people are kind of bad at judging this stuff anyway, I think. Like, if you're 6 feet 1, what the device pass, the facial and everything, you're probably fine. But it might become
Hmm.
harder because if you are tall, you stand out more.
Yeah, like the big problem usually when you're tall is you have like a big build to go with it. It's not just the height, sometimes it's like the broad shoulders and all that that makes it so difficult. Usually height is kind of attractive, even on women.
I agree. It's like
Yeah,
model-esque. Like,
it's important to separate being attractive with passing. There are different things.
that's true. Like you could pass as like an old granny and like be like hideous, but still look completely like a woman, and you could like look like a trans woman, very obviously, but be extremely attractive.
I just personally think that like a lot of people aren't gonna go to that length of like trying to distinguish you as trans if you pass in every other way other than height.
I agree. Like I've seen a lot of beautiful, extremely tall trans women, and these like models, unless you like hear their voice or like certain things like that make you like assume that they may be trans. But like if all your ducks are in a row, like I don't think height will be that big of a factor as long as you're not like abnormally tall for like a human in general, like 6'5" or like I don't know, like 6'4" or 3 or 2.
I think you should not be discouraged by height alone, but you should always take account all the other more important factors, like how your body shape is, just like how your bones structure is, and like we said before, the age, and just how you look. Exactly that. How you look is very important.
Yeah, they all kind of like add like into each other. Like it's like a math equation. Like oh, you're this tall, you're this old, your genetics say this and that. Like it's not just one thing or not the other that's like a deal breaker. Most of the things are like mutable or like could be like accepted as long as everything else is like in line. If that makes sense. Like being super tall or being like older, like it's not always like a deal breaker as far as like transitioning goes.
Yeah, I just see there's a lot of trans women out there that focus too much on that, which, it is a little bit important, but it's like, just there's so many other factors that make it so then you don't pass, and being 6'4" may not be the one that's like stopping you. Maybe it is the voice instead.
Yeah, I've noticed the voice is like the biggest thing that makes me clock trans women. Like their voices are either like very, very deep or like, hi like this, oh my god, hi, I'm Tiffany, I'm a girl now. Ooh. Like that. And I'm like, oh my god, I've never heard a woman that sounds like that. That's like so crazy. I don't know. I immediately think, oh, either this woman has like an extremely like abnormally deep voice or like she's trans. But like combine that with someone that's also tall, it's just like, oh yeah, she's definitely trans.
I think also that trans people and people close to them might be better at like catching and clocking people, while people normally are more ignorant. They're easier to fool because they are clueless about this stuff.
Yeah, I
Yes.
call it trans derangement syndrome. It's like when they're seeing so many trans people in their lifetime, they're like they think like trans people are everywhere and like everyone's trans. Because like they're so hyper aware from like I guess trans politics or like just seeing like memes online, like they think the trans people are on the walls, like they're everywhere.
Yeah, this is so
I think
hilarious. There are those like trans investigators of like think like everyone is like trans, like even fucking Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and Obama and everything.
yeah, Donald Trump is definitely a pooner. Donald Trump has vagina, definitely. Obviously. You see his hips? They're so feminine. It's just crazy.
What is your view regarding mental characteristics?
I would say that you'd have to have a big willingness to like change who you are and maybe abandon like a lot of the mannish behavior you used to exhibit.
Yeah, I think also that too. I think like dedication is like a big thing. Like I feel like a lot of people really aren't dedicated to things they start. Like they might like, I don't know, start at the beginning the process of everything and think like, oh, this is hard and just immediately give up. I think being dedicated is like really important. Like having like a strong like work ethic. Which might sound like weird, but like transitioning is like a long game. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that's like really super easy or anything. So I
Yeah,
definitely think it's a mental fortitude.
how I heard this said from like an actual cis woman is everyone who's like born a woman starts learning the experiences basically from day one. As however many years it took you to like truly come into girl mode is how many years you're kind of missing out on in difference. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. It just means that you have to probably work harder just to catch up.
Yeah, it's like cis women have like a kind of a one up on us, but I think we have one up on them because we're more motivated to catch up. Like I feel like so many cis women are like content with their femininity, are content with like themselves. They don't really feel like the need to like level up their femininity or like achieve like a femininity goal like a lot of trans women have. So that's like our power. We're like really motivated to like make the changes necessary to like make ourselves appear the way we want to.
If you have sexual fantasies where you want to be like female, do you think this is a reason to pursue medical transition?
I feel like it makes it like life easier because like a lot of the sexual like fetishization can become a lifestyle versus like a kink that like you just use to get off. And I feel like that's a lot more healthier because like usually like when you use it as a kink or like a fetish, like you have a lot of shame and like disgust with yourself like after like you I don't know how do I say this like PC um relieve yourself in sexual manner. Like you might have a lot of shame from that, but if once you start taking HRT, like definitely reduces your sex drive a little bit. So like a lot of the sexual feelings you have related to like cross dressing or feminization will either like change or completely like disappear.
Yeah.
So yeah.
From my personal experience, I find that it's like definitely a fulfilling way to go, and it definitely clears up like how the fetish works. Like some people confuse it and think that like it's going away and they should detransition, which I think is a little messed up. I think you should just keep going and embrace the womanhood that is to come, because there's a little bit of drop in like the sex drive, that is true, but then it comes back and usually it is like very much different. That's why maybe some people may not understand or think that like, they just don't have a sex drive. They could also be getting the testosterone nuke. That's another possibility, but if it's not that, usually they just have to explore who they are and then they'll probably have much more sexually satisfying results. At least that is from my personal opinion from delving into this.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, and there isn't really an particularly great way to like repress sexual desire like that. Like especially not as a male, I think if you go on HRT, it will be more like a normal female sexuality. You will not really have a problem, but as a male, like for one, it's not really like that accepted or desired to want to be feminine in sexual situation as a male. Like a lot of females will find it off-putting, but if instead you're a female, it will be viewed as a positive and people will like that because you embrace femininity. And this is attractive and you're female, but if you're male, it's unattractive.
Yeah, I feel like people see it like a certain way. Like they see like a male embracing the femininity as like inherently like a degenerate thing or like a sexual like immoral thing. But like as a woman embracing your feminine body is seen like something that's empowering and like beautiful. So like that's definitely like the change in like society, how they would treat you based on like you experiencing like wanting to be feminine in a sexual way when you transition.
Yeah, it's not just society, like especially when it comes to dating. A lot of females don't want males like that or want to be like feminine. Like especially when it comes to sex, they don't like that for the most part. Sure, you can try to find some exception, but it is actually a general thing that males are often willing to both be submissive and dominant, but a lot of females want to themselves have a dominant male. So if you have more submissive sexual fantasies, it's kind of hard to fulfill that without like going to a sex worker or something, unfortunately.
I've noticed that too. Like a lot of men, like they have a dominant and submissive side that like they definitely try to like neglect and like hide. And maybe like if they just embraced it and like maybe like transition to like embrace their submissive side more often, because like I feel like me as like a trans woman, like people are like finally like embracing my masculine dominant side or like my like top side or like my feminine like submissive side, and like it's like both sides are like equally embraced. But like if I was like a male, like a man, like people would not accept it. They'll probably think it's gross that like I want to be feminine and submissive. So yeah, you're definitely right about that.
And one good thing about being female is that females are kind of the ones who set the standards when it comes to like dating and everything. So it's always males having to please the females, not really the other way around for the most part. Like at least in Western societies.
Mhm.
Do you think that males who currently struggle with dating a lot should consider medical transition if they have a shot at passing?
Definitely, like it'll improve their dating options like a lot. Like even if they don't want to date like other males or like they don't want to date men in general, like they could always date other trans women. They could date like cis women if they pass enough. Like and also women just get more dating options in general on dating apps and like in person. Like you're more likely to be axed out. You're more likely to be have people flirt with you as a woman. Like as since I've been transitioning, I've had like more women flirt with me than I did when I was like a male, and like I'm not really even that attracted to women, so I definitely think it will help a lot, especially if you're pretty. Women flirt with other women all the time.
I think a lot
We're just
of
like being
males
ignored.
currently struggle with this loneliness and like not feeling desired, not having like companionship, they're kind of alone. So it's not just about wanting sex, it's about all this other social aspect where they don't really get touched or companionship and all that. So I think it's kind of hard to fix that in other ways, which is kind of messed up. But
It's messed up, but it's true though. Like most most men like are undesirable and like unwanted, which is sounds bad, but women are just valued more in society, which I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but it's just noticeable that like women are treated significantly better in society. And like this in the world in general, and dating wise, like benefits wise, like women are treated like uplifted extremely. like higher than men.
And a lot of males in relationships, it's obvious that the female don't really care about them, so they might like put up with the male for whatever reason. But be for money, it might be for like to have someone to talk to, but it's not really this like desire really for the man. So they just
It's like
replace.
so sad because like a lot of these men like they feel like they can't even leave that person even though they feel like the person's not that attracted to them or doesn't really care for them because they feel like they don't have much other options.
Yeah, so males have to put up with often this coolness and not really being wanted by the partner because they don't really have anyone else. What do you think you should do if you live with a transphobic family but otherwise your environment is fairly supportive?
Well, definitely like get in contact with like your local like LGBT community because like there are a lot of like things that you could like get just simply for identifying as a trans woman. Like I know there's like grants and stuff. Like right now they're paying for people to move out of Florida. Like they're literally crowdfunding them to like have like transportation and housing for like a month or two so like get off their feet. So look into your like local area, like what's available. Also like I wouldn't recommend like not transitioning. I would recommend still transitioning, but like in the meantime, like looking for like a place to stay, saving money, and like because you know that like even if like, your parents might not accept you, your community accepts you. So you'll always have something to like lean back on if like you know you get kicked out or like something bad happens and your parents don't like accept you.
I think that generally you don't want to just live with your parents forever anyway. Like if you stay with them, it's kind of a trap because you will not actually go anywhere. And like if you live with controlling parents, it will be disastrous for like all aspects of your life anyway, because they will prevent you from like having meaningful relationships and living the life you want. Like if you have parents who are this controlling, like there isn't really value in like keeping in touch anyway because they just want to push you in directions that isn't beneficial for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say that you'd probably want to try to do your female socialization like outside of the parents' household and maybe just hide it from them, completely lie to them, boy mode to them. Just, so then they don't get mad at you. But yeah, ideally it'd be save up money just so then you can leave as soon as you can if that's the case.
I agree.
And one thing you have to be careful about is that a parent might hold something over your head. For example, say that they can pay a car or whatever. But the thing is that I actually heard from one person about this that then they told me that the parents wanted their car in their name. So like they will just keep using that leverage over them forever and they will never get free.
Hmm.
Yes, never let your parents gatekeep you from transitioning, and that is why you have to leave if they're gonna do that.
Yeah, why would you want the parents to get away like in the way of your happiness? Definitely, because like just because like they're the vessel that created you doesn't mean that like they'll always understand what's the best for you or will make you the most happy.
Yeah, there is this entitlement in a lot of parents that they feel entitled to controlling your life. And often those parents that actually know what's best for you. I know a lot of parents like that, how they are. And there are the people who, for example, they read something on Facebook and think that this is true and think they know better than you. Like you can have like 10 studies and they have some Facebook post and they believe the Facebook post over the 10 studies because they are older than you and they think they are better at doing research on Facebook than you are using scientific studies.
Yeah.
A lot of old people refuse like listen as well, so they can be very ignorant as well. So if you try to talk about trans stuff, they can say that oh, I don't want to hear about it, I don't care about the subject, and like 5 minutes later they talk shit about trans people again.
Yeah, people are really ignorant, honestly, especially like the older generation. Like, they really don't, some of them really don't understand and probably never will. So it's not like your responsibility to educate them on like everything. Like if they can keep up with like what how society's changing, that's on them. Don't make that a responsibility. Don't try to like chase after people that don't want you or like don't want your presence or want who you are.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if you try to please people, it will send the wrong signal because then they feel like they can control you even more. But if you, for example, are willing to leave your parents, then they will start to be more nice to you in some cases because they know that you are willing to cut ties, and then suddenly they will start respecting you again.
That's definitely true. Like me, I experienced that with my parents. Like I transitioned without their permission and they found out and I ended up moving out. And like it was literally years I didn't talk to them. And then finally we finally reached out and like things are so much better because it takes someone like losing something to realize what they lost. Like sure they may have lost a son, but like they rather have a daughter than have no child at all. So like that's definitely a pleasant thing, but even if they never like accept you, just know you chose yourself first and like your own happiness versus like suffering for the sake of someone else. That's not worth it at all.
Yeah, and I don't even think like really help them anyway. Like, how does your suffering help your person anyway? It really doesn't.
Yeah. Some people can never change, honestly.
But I think one issue for some people is if you live in some like really bad country that is like poor and hard to escape from, this is probably the worst situation. And I haven't come across this so much in the server, but let's say for example you live in some African very transphobic country, and then if you try to immigrate you will be stopped in a lot of cases because it's hard. Like for example, if you try to like leave Africa or to Europe, for example, there's a lot of like fences and border guards and everything, and if you get caught, bad things can happen. So, and there are like people dying often because they drown when trying to flee to Europe. So this is not a pleasant
Well,
situation.
I don't know. I feel like even if they couldn't escape to Europe, like there's places in like I don't know, like different countries that like have like their LGBT place. Like I know in like Africa, there's like South Africa, they have like a large LGBT community. So it's versus like fleeing like a country, they could just flee like to another country versus like staying in their home country is like transphobic or like just like against like different things in general.
Yeah, there are many different African countries, and I haven't actually studied which is the better ones.
Yeah, I
But
just follow this one like South African trans YouTuber, and she says it's like pretty safe there, but everywhere else it's like awful.
yeah, so if you can go to South Africa, it might be better. But I heard that South Africa might actually block people from going there as well because
Yikes.
they don't want their like living standards to be diluted.
That sucks.
Yeah, generally often if you live in some like poor country that is dysfunctional and try to leave, like a lot of the better places will just block you because they don't want you. Or like
Yeah.
you might get accepted, it's just a challenging, you have to go to the right place and move there before they like restrict immigration. For example, Sweden used to have generous immigration policies, but then they have the issue that a lot of people will just move here and then live on welfare and not get a job. For then they ended up making it a lot harder to get asylum here and get and then even if you get asylum, you might not get citizenship.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Some European countries have a system that if you are like descended from them, you can get citizenship. But of course, the citizenship by descent programs it only works if you are like you have like white heritage, obviously. So, for example, for Americans, this could be useful if you want to leave America. There are other ways as well. But like
Oh,
in some
really? I thought that would be difficult though, like moving from like in like a what's the word, established country to like another established country. I feel like they might like try to like stop you unless you have like I don't know a really good job or something.
In Europe, there are various ways. For example, Italy have a thing where if you like, you can buy a house there and get like a golden visa, sort of. Then there's also citizenship by descent that some countries have, but then you have to like have someone in your ancestry who actually lived there, and there are different rules for different places. So this kind of favors white people because they are more likely to have someone actually lived there, and like you can also get a tourist visa for a while in 3 months to Europe, I think. And
That's interesting. I don't want to go off topic, but like I'm actually interested in this.
yeah, this is sort of relevant for people who, let's say, for example, want to leave to Europe because Europe is fairly chill when it comes to trans stuff. Is that you need to find some EU country that you can like stay in, and if you can, then you can actually visit the entire European Union, because if you can get like citizenship to one EU country, you get access to the entirety of EU, which is very nice. So this is why an EU citizenship is more valuable, because then you get access to 27 countries.
Yeah, I've always wanted to live in Europe too, so I'm just listening.
Yeah, I live in Europe by birth. I'm a Swede, so I have a Swedish citizenship, and if I want to like move to some European country, it's very easy.
I want to visit Sweden so bad. It seems so nice there. It's definitely on my list. I just need to figure out how like the tourist shit works there.
Yeah, like you can definitely get a visa. So I don't think that just me living a transphobic area should necessarily stop you, because a lot of the time those transphobic areas are shitholes that you don't want to live in anyway. Like often the more trans-friendly areas are nicer to live in, regardless if you want to transition or not.
True. Like a more liberal area typically is like a nicer environment, like that in general, honestly.
When you're living in third world countries, it's definitely a much harder uphill battle where you might have to do a couple years of suffering just to get the amount of money just to leave, but it'll definitely be worth the payoff, like most of transition is in general.
Yeah, what I found, unfortunately, is that often the people are kind of stuck because they live in some like third world poor country. They struggle to access HRT, and they have transphobic parents, and they struggle to like save money to leave. Like everyone in those like poor countries, or most people at least, want to like move to some better place. But the thing is, like, if you don't have the skills required, you cannot like provide like benefit to the country you go to, then they don't want to, because they don't want people who are a drain on the economy. This makes people upset. But there are so many countries out there, so like move to some better place, even if it isn't like Sweden or Germany or like some better place of America or like Estonia or whatever. Like you can still move to a better place. You don't have to move to like the best place in the world. Not everyone has the luxury I have, because if I want to move to some other European country, I can do that easily, but for most people that don't have those options, they have to get what they can. Do you think that people who will never be able to pass should consider medical transition anyway?
It really depends on like their environment, honestly. Like if you live in like a really pro-trans environment where like even if you don't pass as a woman, you can still get like the legal benefits of being a woman, like, you know, like diversity hires, or like, I don't know, women's spaces, like a women's only like, travel cart, or like a women's only like subway cart or something, or like a grant or something. Like even if you don't pass, you can still qualify for those things. I think it's like a benefit. But like if you live in an area that's like, you know, this kind of okay with trans people, it probably might not be the best experience, because people will probably treat you poorly. And even if you do have those benefits, it might not outweigh the cons.
Something I heard some people suggest is like merely changing your legal sex and not actually transitioning. but I'm not sure how well this is going to work out. Like if your ID says, for example, female and you look like a male, you might get into trouble in some areas or in some situation because of that. And also
Yeah, they're gonna think you're being inherently deceptive, especially if you don't like even try to present feminine at all. You just like present like completely masculine. Like
yeah,
I was in a trans group, like a trans like a meeting, like a support group, and everyone was like feminine presenting, and this one person came in and they were extremely mask presenting, and like everyone started laughing at them because they wanted to be called she her and like a female name when they look completely male, and they even try it all. So I think that's how most people will treat you. If like even trans people were laughing at you, like society probably won't take that seriously.
I mean, of course, maybe some situation you might be able to like abuse legal loopholes, but I think if too many people start abusing that, they will probably just close it and say that oh, it's not enough. So they might say that we need to like put some effort into like your social transition at least, or otherwise you will not be allowed to actually change that legal status. For example,
Yeah,
when they amended the system or tried to in Scotland, they actually required social transition at least on paper before you were allowed to change your legal sex. And I guess that like they might have been worried about people trying to abuse it, which is maybe why they had it as a requirement.
yeah. I feel like TRAs kind of got rid of that though. Like it used to be the thing called the real life test. Like you need in order to like have your like gender marker change or like your name change, you would have to like prove that like you were living as a woman, like consistently, like have a job, be in school or like have like multiple family members or friends like that recognize you that way and can like co-sign that. And sort of that might seem a little toxic, but it definitely stops people like that from like taking advantage of the laws. Even
I
it makes
think
it like
it's
harder
I
for
think
trans
there's like
people.
I think there's like a happy medium when it comes to this kind of situation where there should be some sort of proof of like social transitioning, but you should not be gate kept your HRT to do these kinds of tests of humiliation before you even like have time to like,
No,
get into it.
I
no.
agree. I feel like it should just be like for the name change and like other changes.
Yeah, obviously this will just be about changing your legal sex. Like for HRT, this often it's actually better to start with HRT and then delay your social
Yeah.
transition. Like if you live in a less supportive environment where you can get into trouble, it can be easier if you wait a little with
Yeah.
the social transition, not do it right away. This is also useful if you might regret starting HRT, because then if you find out HRT isn't for you, you can just stop taking it and not have to tell anyone that you changed your mind.
That was the biggest problem with like the whole real life tests they wanted you to do before is they wouldn't even give you HRT and they're like, all right, just do it. And yeah, that's a little messed up, but I do agree for like, transitioning's a long way, You should definitely be socially as a female at some point if you want to legally change your sex.
And yeah, I feel like people only fought against that because like they seen it like as gatekeeping in general. Like they didn't like any form of like protection for like trans like rights or anything. They felt like it was oppressive inherently, which I feel like that's just not necessarily true. I feel like some protection as far as like for our rights and our ability to do transition and like live our lives should be like allowed.
Yeah, I think we need to have some standards because we don't want to become useful idiots for people who just want to abolish gender or fucking men's rights activists and all these fucking bad people.
Yeah, that's the main reason why they got rid of it because they felt like it was like pushing gender roles and trans women that like they didn't want to like necessarily have to gauge in. Like they didn't think you should have to present feminine or like live your life as a woman and be call yourself a trans woman, which really doesn't make any sense to me, but okay.
Yeah, but we're dealing with people who are like gender critical, ideologically, so they don't want really gender or anything. But the thing is, those people are not really useful for actual trans people anyway. They just want to push the politics.
Agreed. Like they just have a political message. They don't even care about how it affects like actual trans people or people in general, honestly. Like, oh, gender roles are evil. Gender is a disgusting thing. It's terrible. But like literally most people like benefit from gender whether they want to admit it or not.
I think it's a beautiful thing that you have this like special clothing and stuff for one gender. I think it's very nice.
Yeah, they'll probably say it's like oppressive or something.
Gender roles can also provide people with basic guidance in life, and for many people this is something that they need. They need to know how to act and how to behave instead of just wandering aimlessly in life.
I personally think that it's social suicide if you're like at the point of no return where you won't pass and you try to socially transition, even if like you get the pity pass, like you're likely not to get friends or anything, and that's why I wouldn't suggest it if it's too late. Try to enjoy your life while you can. Maybe try to repress that for the last few dozen years you have left.
How would you determine too late though? I'm just kind of curious. Like that might be kind of
Determined too
confusing
late.
for people.
I think 50 is a hard wall of too late, but for something to not be, I think anywhere below 50, it's more of like a case by case basis of how you look, and like because a lot of it is also pay to win. I think anyone can, put enough money into their face to make it look feminine, especially if they're under 50.
Some people are unsavable with that, but I mean, I really would argue that you there's just some faces that are just not savable.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the case that some faces, like even with surgery, just now will never be able to pass as female.
Fine.
Yep. So yeah, I think
Wait.
unfortunately many people with more masculine faces will never be able to pass as a female no matter what surgery they have. Like even radical FFS cannot save them. And I'm not sure what they should even do, to be honest. Like, don't really have any good options if you have like severe gender dysphoria.
Yeah, I'm still sticking to my basis that it's just an exorbitant amount of money you have to pay to do it as long as you're below the age of 50. But yes, it's near impossible for any ordinary person. You won't be able to do it with $5,000. You're gonna need $100,000 spent on your face.
True. I mean, there's also like trans jobs you could get to like have it paid for, but like even that, like a passing face won't give you a passing body, and like some like if your body is masculinized to a certain point, like there's no point in even trying to like change. It's like over, bro.
That's the biggest case by case basis is how masculine is your body by the time you're past your puberty.
Yeah, and of course, one important factor to consider is that if someone is like severely dysphoric, then of course you have to be more willing to like gamble with the transition. But one thing that worries me is that people are very dysphoric might pursue a transition when it isn't really beneficial. So I think many of those really bad transitions that you see where people become like total homes is because they were like too dysphoric to repress, and then like they cracked at like 50 or 40, and then their face is like super masculine and they are never able to come close to passing. I think that this is the end of episode 14 of the Transmaxxing podcast. You should absolutely like, subscribe and share this video. Have a nice day everyone.